Hello, I'm Molly at Parker Walsh, and in this video I'm going to be talking about creditors' voluntary liquidation and a step-by-step guide as to how to place your company into liquidation. So the first step is the initial advice stage. So that involves the director contacting me, and that can be the biggest issue that the directors have. You know, they can find it quite daunting. They've not been in this situation before and they don't know what to expect. So picking up the phone is the first step, and it can be the biggest one, and I completely understand that. But there isn't anything to be worried about. You're seeking help, so only good can come from that. So what we do once you've made the first contact, we set up a telephone call, virtual meeting, or an in-person meeting, whatever you would prefer, and we just run through the company's situation. And so typically I ask questions like, do you want to continue with the company? How many employees have you got? What issues have there been? And can you overcome them? Are there any changes that you'd like to make to your company to make it more viable? So it's questions like this, and it's just fact finding and trying to get an understanding as to what you want for the company and whether or not the company can be saved if that's what you want to happen, and what changes are needed and what the problems are. Who are the creditors? You know, are they hostile or are they open for negotiation? You know, with HMRC, have there been time to pay arrangements in the past that have failed? Or are you just starting to accrue liability there? So it's all these sort of questions. So we just have an informal chat where I try to gauge as much information as I can and to get a good idea of the company. So that's the first stage, the initial advice. Then, if it's a creditor's voluntary liquidation and you want to go ahead, it's then the onboarding process, and that consists of an online ID verification app that we send you. It's got very basic instructions on there, and it takes 5 minutes. I've done it. You just need passport or a driving license and a recent utility bill, proof of your address, essentially. It's relatively easy. It takes 5 minutes. Any problems, just get in touch and we can help you. And essentially that's the onboarding process. Then we issue our engagement letter, which we ask the directors to read carefully and then sign it. Within the engagement letter, it sets out our fee, it sets out the process, it's got some practical tips, you know, essentially do's and don'ts. So, you know, don't sell the assets for less than what they're worth, try to protect the assets, and also don't expand on the creditors, you know, don't increase that. So don't go and get a loan, for example. So there's some practical tips in there within the terms and conditions, and it also explains my role and what it is that I do. So we ask the director to sign the engagement letter. So we've got the initial advice, we've got the onboarding process, and then it's the engagement letter. Then we ask for company information. So this is to help us to prepare the liquidation paperwork. So we send you 2 questionnaires, and they're relatively easy. You know, the company's VAT number, the CT reference number, the pay-as-you-earn reference number, your bank account, sort code and account number, creditors, names, addresses, reference numbers, email addresses. It's that sort of information that we send out. If you struggle with it, we always ask that you get in touch with us because we can assist you. But we run through that and we get all the information that we can. So that's the gathering information stage. And then once we've got everything, we then go to draft the liquidation notices and reports. So that's the next stage. And so once we've got all the information, we'll have a case administrator dedicated to your company, and they will draft the liquidation notices and liquidation report, which provides creditors with information about the company as to why the company failed, because it's often not the director's fault at all. You know, it's external pressures. You know, we've had COVID, we've had energy increasing costs, you know, just costs of materials going up. So all these things can affect a business. So we explain that to creditors, along with some financial information, essentially listing the company's assets and its liabilities. So that goes to creditors, and they get notice that the company is going into liquidation. And then once the company's in liquidation, that's the next stage, and I take over as liquidator, and then I deal with the creditors. So I write to them and I say, look, I've now been appointed liquidator. We'll be realising the assets if the company has any, and we'll be distributing that accordingly. So the liquidation costs come out of that first, then employees, then HMRC, and then the rest of the creditors as a rule of thumb. But typically there's not usually any money to go back to the creditors, so we do explain to them that they need to write off their liability. We will carry out our conduct checks on the director just to make sure everything was dealt with appropriately. And then once all matters are realised, the liquidation is then closed and then eventually gets dissolved and doesn't appear on Companies House anymore. So I know it seems quite long-winded, but essentially we've got the initial advice stage, the onboarding stage, the engagement letter stage, gathering the information stage, and then drafting the liquidation notices and report, and then the liquidation. So it's those stages that we have to go through. But in regards to timescales, I would say it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to get into liquidation, and then if it's a standard liquidation, it'll be closed after about 9 months. So it's not, it's not years and years. It is a relatively quick procedure. But if you'd like any more information, just get in touch. Okay, thank you.